All right, Willy, I have a kind of a weird question to begin this week. So I hope you follow along, and I hope everybody stays with us here, but we're not into too many conspiracy theories. Would you say that? Like, what's your conspiracy theory, or like the one that you're into?
It's less a conspiracy theory and more something that is just a true belief of mine. True belief. That's weird.
But don't think about it too much. Just say it out loud. Like, this isn't the question I want to ask you.
Aliens didn't build the pyramid. No, the pyramids were cast in place, you idiots.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, follow along. Here we go.
Okay.
If you could, what kind of secret society would you start?
Magic.
The Gathering?
No, ooh. Woof, I want the rooms to smell fine.
Hold on. It has to be like a real thing.
Oh, okay.
You can't just fucking start Harry Potter.
Why not? You didn't specify the fucking rules, Scott.
I know. I should have set some parameters.
Let me start Hogwarts in Minnesota.
Oh, you have the opportunity. You're suddenly like just gazillionaire, and you're going to start a secret society that you only let your friends into. What is it? Is it Skull and Bones? Is it like secret magician society where, you just do illusions? What do you think?
Do you have ideas? I'm mulling this over right now. I'm thinking about it.
I mean, kind of. I think I would want to start a underground IKEA furniture building tournament. And it's like a versus thing, except it's also a fight club. So after the furniture is built, you get to I don't know, use it to attack the other person.
You're just throwing chairs at people. Lackluster furniture that's likely to fall apart. You're just chucking it across the room at someone.
I mean, we know it's going to break, so why not break it over somebody, right? But that's just me. This question
on the other
you.
hand, have you heard of a speakeasy?
Oh, sure.
How do those work?
It's a little red and yellow device with a small black screen, and you type in what you want to say, and it speaks to you, right?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, sorry, that's a speak and spell.
Oh,
you're talking about the Prohibition style rooms that are hidden magically, some would say, in back alleys.
Everybody, at some point, man, woman, has always wanted a secret room. Now, I want to take that one step further. There's a speakeasy here in the Twin Cities where they can open up a little sliding slot next to your table and deliver your food out through the side. So like you're just sitting there, you're having a good time, you order something, it just pops out the side wall. I want a secret society where we have a chain of restaurants, but I want my secret society to go in and all those cubbies open up, distract people, and they steal their food and eat it. Never pay for it. And these companies wouldn't know.
Okay.
Chick-fil-A, they'd have no fucking clue. I would walk up, I'd steal a nugget.
So the secret society is like a restaurant built into another restaurant as a front.
Yes.
The whole purpose is to go and try and steal other people's food without them noticing?
Yes.
That sounds amazing.
Where are we starting this?
What would you call it?
Peekins. The side job of Perkins.
It's the same exact sign, just minus the R. Welcome to the front podcast of the internet. I'm Scott Gurrola.
And I'm Willy Mattson. And you know what?
And I do know what.
Do you?
Yes.
What do you know?
He's on second.
Going home. Mother's in the back seat.
Chickens in the roost.
You know what we've just proven? We would never be good rappers.
I concur.
It dawned on me that in the movie the 8th Mile, is that what it is?
8 Mile with M&M. Yes.
With M and M, we see a young Falcon. Did you
Anthony Mackie?
Anthony Mackie is in that film.
I did not know that. I've seen that movie. I remember Kim Basinger.
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 She was in that film too? Oh, she was the mom.
She was the mom. I remember Eminem. I remember Mekhi Phifer because he's also in the song.
Who?
Mekhi Phifer. No relation to Michelle.
Oh, no relation?
Nope. Not that I know of. Oh, that's cool to know. So we'll see upcoming in his next show, Winter Soldier, the TV series, starring Captain America.
If Eminem showed up, that would be a really nice moment.
Aw, that would be a cool throwback.
I think Eminem is old enough now to where he could start showing up in Disney things. You always reach that plateau as a more edgy social figure. And at some point you're like, yeah, I'll go on Disney.
Ice Cube started out as a super gangster rapper, and then he was in those Are We There Yet movies. But speaking of things that are old, Willy, this year was the 25th anniversary of Pokemon.
It was.
And this week in r/gaming, there's a nice little cartoon drawing here, or several cartoon drawings kind of all amalgamated into one, of a brother and sister playing the Pokemon games. And it's titled 25 Years of Brother and Sister Playing Pokemon. It starts off with a little boy holding his baby sister and what looks like a Game Boy Advance, and progresses to them a little older playing Pokemon Arena on the Nintendo 64, followed by
with the TV on the floor, mind you. That's one of my favorite moments of that.
The next one is a GameCube, which is a system that I never owned, much less played upon, but TV's still on the floor, and he's playing on there, and she's playing on her own little
Nintendo DS.
Nintendo, yeah.
It's got the flippy screen, right? Is that a DS?
I think so. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Or like the Game Boy Advance Mini or something like that.
Yeah.
Who knows? They're nostalgic. Nintendo devices supposedly last forever, right?
Of course.
And then the final one is them back-to-back. He's playing on Switch, and she's playing on a DS Lite, it looks like. Double screen.
I'm so impressed with your knowledge of Nintendo consoles.
Oh, man. I wanted Nintendo consoles from the moment I first saw the inaugural Game Boy. That monstrosity of gray and black and greenish digital screen.
And then remember, you had to buy a separate adapter that had a projectile light that would plug in.
Because backlit just did not exist. So did you play Pokemon at all growing up? Or have any friends, family that were into it? Because it's a huge thing.
Let me tell you an interesting story. I've said this multiple times on the podcast, but I grew up, there was about 18 kids, all within about a 6-year range. Some a little bit older than that. So there are some extraneous ones, but there were so many children all around the same age. So there was tons of influence growing up on what was popular and what wasn't.
Where was this? In your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood. That's what I grew up amongst. 18 kids all around the same age. So Pokemon originally came out when? In the early 90s?
Whatever 25 years ago from today is, so... Hold on, I'm going to math. 95.
96.
Dang it.
You idiot. Okay, so it comes out in 96. Now, my two closest friends were...
Squirtle and Bulbasaur.
Yes. No, they were younger than me. Both named Matt, and my name is Mattson. It was very confusing. So both of them were younger than me. They were in a grade below me. It was at the time that came out around the time that I was getting into 8th grade. And when Pokemon was really hitting its peak, I was going into 9th grade and they were in 8th grade. So about 3-4 years later.
I would have thought Pokemon would have been huge in 9th grade still.
No, as a 9th grader, I felt the need to be cool. So while my two closest friends were absolutely obsessed with Pokemon, would talk about it all the time, would go get the cards, which are still collector's items, would play the different games on their Game Boys that came out. We could just be at a park and one of them could whip out their Game Boy out of their pocket because we all had cargo shorts at that age and start playing. Not me. I thought I was too cool.
Okay, so instead of Pokemon, what were you into?
Crying myself to sleep at night. What was I into at the time? I think I was around that time. I was probably getting into one of the first Call of Duty games, or I was playing Nintendo, like Mario on 64 or GoldenEye, honestly.
Oh yeah. I had a lot of younger siblings and like cousins, so I just wanted to.
Those aren't called siblings in the state of Minnesota. Just when you get a little further south.
So anyway, both cousins and siblings, separate, different branches of the tree here in the north. They were so into all these things like Power Rangers and Thomas the Tank Engine, Pokemon, things that were totally geared towards younger kids. But I took at least a kind of like a side interest in them, just so I could, when visiting with them, ask them how things were going and what they were into, and kind of like impress them as the older cousin or brother with my knowledge. Like I'm a Pokemon guru. I know all 100 Pokemon. But I don't think I played any of the games themselves until I got a DS in college.
You were still playing games in college, huh?
Video games?
Yeah.
You stopped playing video games in college?
What you guys can't see right now is me surrounded by 4 screens and an opportunity for a 5th screen right here. The 4 years that I went to college, I didn't play a single video game.
Bro, I was at a Shopko in Marshall, Minnesota the night before the PlayStation 2 dropped. I got number 7 of 12 in that store.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I called my parents and I was like, "Hey, is it okay if I spend how much was a PlayStation at the time? $300, $500?
$299, $500 was roughly the price back then.
Sure.
An original PlayStation?
PlayStation 2.
$299.
Okay, so I remember calling up my parents and be like, "Would it be okay if I took $300 of my own money from my savings account and bought a PlayStation 2? And they're like, "Well, if that's how you want to spend your money." And I was like, "Thanks, click." And then so my buddy, Nate, he had a car. I did not. He drove, and we waited in the parking lot all night and just slept
Together?
overnight in his car. Yeah, technically, yeah. I was progressive, but it was college, right? Gotta
21 years ago. You explored early.
That's right. Head of the curve. And got the 7th PlayStation in that, small town in Minnesota.
It's crazy to me that the PlayStation came out, or PS2 came out 21 years ago. It came out in 2000.
Yeah, that's when I went to college.
Yep. Everybody else is doing the math a lot better than us and is like, oh, Jesus. There's a few articles out there. Screen Rant wrote an article this week that said Pokemon Legends, that's the big one everybody's super excited about, could be the start of a new game series. Pokemon Legends is being described as people who love that series as an MMO RPG.
Okay.
LMNOP. Q.
LMFAO.
Can you describe what an MMO RPG is for people that just said click, I'm out?
It's an acronym.
Do you know what it means more specifically? I'm happy to describe it for you, Scott.
Yes, so the Webster's Dictionary definition of an acronym, Willy. MMO is massive multiplayer online. RPG is role-playing game. And for anybody who's ever played Pokemon, like the purpose was to start out with a little pocket monster who would help you fight and capture other little pocket monsters in the world. And I guess your goal was originally to catch them all, which seems kind of obsessive hoarding, if you ask me. But it was a collection-based
animal
game.
cruelty. Really?
Yeah, totally. To create Pokemon into something that would border on the, I don't know, what's a huge, like WoW, World of
Wow.
Warcraft? For them to try and go for that territory is, number one, it's impressive.
It is.
To go from something that people played in a little cargo short video game handheld system to trying to stand up to one of the biggest franchises in video game history is no small feat.
Right. Even Bungie. Look at what Bungie has done in the last couple of years. They've redefined themselves after the split up with Activision as an MMO RPG as well.
Much to my chagrin, but yeah.
And they haven't quite gotten there in the same way. If anybody's able to, I think Pokemon and Team is likely able to create something pretty damn big with this. When I saw this and I saw people's excitement, it made me feel like now is probably the time that I should get into it. 25 years late, but maybe I should get into the game.
I'd say just try it, and you might hate it. You might think it's the most childish thing you've ever played, but
You're childish.
it's got I am. But 25 years of staying power, you got to think it's worth something, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of staying power, this week in r/gifs, there was this really interesting post. I don't know how often you make it onto GIF/GIFs.
I just bought some GIF at Target.
I've been buying chunky GIF.
I just did too. It's got less salt in it.
Oh, I've been doing it because I feel like I need to grow my ass up and start getting chunky peanut butter.
Well, if you eat enough of it, you certainly will grow your ass.
Yes! Going for a dump truck. There was this really interesting GIF that was posted this week called The Face of Michelangelo's David, animated by AI. Did you get a chance to see this at all?
I have not. Well, maybe. I've seen a lot.
I've seen a couple of versions of this pop up this week, and I don't know enough of the specifics, but I'm interested in what the possibilities are.
Oh, I saw something else that was almost completely like this, and I was wondering about if I should talk about it in the show today. I'm glad you posted this. It is the face of the statue almost come to life. It's turning to the left and kind of its eyes are moving and looking around. Is the hair moving? I have to watch that again.
It moves a little bit. It's almost like the hair is kind of stuck in place.
Oh, he's blinking too. That's creepy.
So this team looks like they're using machine learning and AI to look for facial features of Michelangelo's David and get it to start moving as if it were real. And to me, the implications, the future potential of something like this is astounding. You might have seen something earlier this week.
Yeah. I saw a post where somebody had sent their old... No. I think it's an app. I think it's an app you can download. Basically, you take old-timey photos, and it will do the same exact thing to your old dead relatives.
Ugh.
So it was all black and white photos of people like from the Civil War, and suddenly they're like turning their heads and moving around and kind of smiling creepily with, it's not perfect yet for anybody who sees these types of videos or GIFs. And so you can kind of see on the edges where the hair and the face are, like they'll turn, but the technology doesn't have depth built in fully yet.
Yeah.
So like when they turn, the nose kind of stays flat and looks kind of that uncanny valley look, where you just know it's not real.
I think there's so much potential in something like this.
It's like that Spider-Man saying, with great power comes great responsibility. So this is a powerful tool, one would argue, especially when it comes to AI and machine learning. You have the ability to take somebody's face and manipulate it in a way that it's never moved before. Potentially moving the mouth, copying the voice. You could use this for evil.
You definitely could. You probably would.
Of course. I want to rap better.
Scott, it's just a photo of Scott CG'd rapping over Eminem from 8 Mile. I look at this and think of the possibilities of somebody who maybe just recently lost a loved one. and they don't have that video and somebody goes out of their way and creates something, that might be kind of creepy. Maybe.
Oh, well, I mean, I could see, like, say you only had a voice memo, or somebody left you a voicemail, and you found a recent picture, and instead of just like hearing their voice, you could have a somewhat recent photo of them, like, kind of like maybe not looking directly at you, because that might be creepy, but like maybe they're kind of staring off to the side, introspectively, saying that message. That could be comforting.
It's really interesting because you bring up a really thoughtful part about how it can be used for evil, because my initial thought when I saw that original one of somebody who reanimated a face of a grandparent or a great grandparent who had passed away, is maybe this is their first and only time being able to see that person, and it brings them joy. Like, that to me is on the spectrum of positive reasons to use this. The negative reasons are take a politician, make them say something illicit that they're not supposed to say, or just all the creepy things that people could do with it.
Oh, yeah.
That part scares me.
And, like, kids would probably also take their 200-year-old grandparent, great-grandparent, great-great-grandparent, and make them rap like Eminem from 8 Mile. So,
and play Fortnite. Maybe they would rap a song about Fortnite.
We got a number 1 victory royale. Yeah, Fortnite, we about to get down.
There's a broad spectrum on which this could be used. It's just what are the ethical and moral implications going to be when it becomes something that's indistinguishable from real life?
We know that this service is going in the right direction when it is licensed to be exclusively used by OnlyFans.
That's probably going to be the crossing the line area.
Yep.
When I can put your head on Pamela Anderson, though, I am going to be rich.
Ah, man, my childhood. Pokemon and Pamela Anderson. It was nice.
Yeah, but for you, it was the former rather than the latter.
Correct. Yeah. Now, the other thing that was maybe really troublesome growing up, everybody looked at Pamela Anderson and said, like, damn, she fine.
Agreed.
But then you might look at somebody like Jonah Hill and he might get a different treatment.
Yeah, there's definitely some body shaming involved in that comparison.
For the vast majority of my life, I felt similar to the way Jonah Hill probably felt growing up. Maybe less so because he was in the limelight. The reason I'm talking about him is this week there was a post in Murdered by Words, and I'm just going to read this out loud. It's a screenshot of a news article from the Daily Mail. Jonah Hill slips into his black wetsuit for surf day in Malibu before showing off his tattoos while going shirtless to towel himself off.
That's something you would do, right? You can't towel off your wet clothes, so you take off the wet clothes to towel off. Makes sense to me.
His response to that post is where this becomes in the camp of Murdered by Words. He says, I don't think I ever took my shirt off in a pool until I was in my mid-30s, even in front of family and friends. Probably would have happened sooner if my childhood insecurities weren't exacerbated by years of public mockery about my body by press and interviewers. So the idea that the media tries to play me by stalking me while surfing and printing photos like this, it can't faze me anymore. Feels super dope. I'm 37 and finally love and accept myself. This isn't a good for me post, and it definitely isn't a feel bad for me post. It's for the kids who don't take their shirts off at the pool. Have fun. You're wonderful, awesome, and perfect. All my love.
I would send that letter back in time to younger me if I could. Husky me.
I would send it back to current me.
You can do that right now.
Just to make this a little real, Scott. Remember that story I was telling you about ripping my pants earlier?
Yeah, I don't know if it made it into the intro of this show, but I definitely remember that story.
It's going to make it onto our socials somewhere. So if you tie it back to that, there was a moment when I felt my worst. It was probably when I was 24, 25 years old. I was at my worst. And I remember going to a pool with that girl, and I remember feeling so ashamed of who I was. It took me over an hour to feel comfortable to go swimming when it was just like her and her family chilling in a pool. There was just like 4 of us. I couldn't do it. It was heartbreaking. It was that moment where I felt so ashamed of who I was, and I never wanted to feel that way again.
This stems from you looking at Pamela Anderson so much, really, because you were just thinking, why can't I have a body like hers? Just dreaming yourself into that bikini, was bound to set you up for failure, Willy. So this is just on you. Seriously, I was with you, like in spirit, as your fellow fat kid who never wanted to go swimming. I think the last time I really enjoyed swimming was probably elementary school, because I just didn't know any better. I hadn't found out what body shame or,
Body dysmorphia.
Yeah, is that what this would be? Or
It
is
could be
that
under that. Yeah.
Okay. And I just remember the first time I noticed that my stomach was a little jiggly, and all the other kids around me, their stomachs were not jiggly. That's when like the t-shirt never wanted to come off whenever I went near a body of water. I would always put on the bathing suit and like go stand in the water. But many years were lost of what could have been liquid enjoyment. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm the same way. I've lost so much weight, as we've talked about on here before. I think I would go swimming with somebody like you, who I know is definitely not going to judge me. But
Right.
where there was complete strangers around, I would still be hesitant.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we live in a society, Scott.
That's right, Jared Leto.
No, but it's unfortunate because I think so much is being taught of us at a young age that we need to look a certain way or be perceived a certain way. Being too old to be on TikTok, I think that statement is slowly changing to be just fine on TikTok. That is, I can see the same things being echoed in a new generation. All of these people on that app, the people that are becoming the most famous or the most sought after, are the most in shape, the most comfortable in their own skin.
Oh yeah, TikTok got busted for that. They were only promoting people who they considered hot. I, on the other hand, want to tell every single person that has a problem with their body shape or style, like every young kid who feels that shame, the exact same thing that Jonah Hill did. Like, you're fine. Don't care. Enjoy life. Like, seriously, nobody else matters when it comes to this, and like figuring out who you are and what's great and what's not great for you. Like, don't let anybody else influence you that way. And yet here we are, smack dab in the middle of an influencer society. And I feel terrible because we had pressures, but these kids, it's multiplied like nothing I've ever imagined.
And it's going to take years. It's going to take years for us to catch up, likely to Jonah Hill. It's going to take these kids, my nieces, it's going to take them even longer to get through it, which begs the question, how do you start that process? How do you make it easier for them? One of the things that I've done is I try to speak way more openly with my nieces about these types of topics. When it comes to dating, I don't say boys and girls. I say people. When it comes to how you eat and how you're feeling, I don't try to put any shame on that, because growing up, I knew relatives who would shame their children for eating so much.
Yeah, I know that it's probably just best to get it out all in the open. Just talk about it. Have those conversations early. Prepare kids for what they're going to run into. Say like, listen, everyone that isn't your family, if you're in a good situation, that is, but everyone technically has the potential to be a butcher in terms of they will cut you down for anything that doesn't look like them, doesn't agree with what they think, goes against their belief system. Like, there is nowhere you can be safe from some sort of criticism. And, that's 100% on the person that is doing the criticizing. But kids don't know that. They are inadequately prepared to deal with the social pressures that are awaiting them. And it just breaks my heart thinking about my nieces and nephews having to encounter those types of situations, because everybody goes through it. It's a crucible. It's kind of what makes us or breaks us. But I like what you're saying. Just have those conversations early and often.
If you're a parent and you have opinions about this, email us, because I would love to do follow-up for the previous week and say, this is where we got it wrong, or this is what this parent said is a way in which they're helping coach their children, helping be a mentor and help them get through this. Because I know that there's plenty of people that are either new to parenting or have been seasoned veterans at it. They're on their third or fourth, and you know what they're feeling. And I'm really curious to know from people that are not us idiots what it actually feels like. Mind you, I do want to do one bit of follow-up from last week. I said that we had only landed on Mars 3 times. We landed 5 times. I had to look that up in the editing.
Willy, I'm glad you brought up kind of like a serious subject for your last story, because I also have a serious subject that I would like to talk about this week that showed up on Reddit and has been popping up all over the United States. Now, we just are finishing up the celebration of Black History Month, which has been a great reminder that it's not just a month, it's not just a day, it's not just MLK Day, it's a whole year-long, lifelong thing. And it's a struggle for a lot of people out there. And another group that is also struggling as of late with blatant racism is the Asian community. This week in r/pics, the post is woman holding sign in San Francisco, California, and it is an Asian woman standing holding a basic black and white sign that says, "Asian is not a virus, racism is." Have you been following any of the stories about attacks, literal attacks, on the Asian community in places all around the United States?
A little. I think you might know a little bit more about it than I do. My news sources are pretty limited, and they have spoken about some of the unrest that's happening around the U.S. It's pretty shitty.
One of the stories in relation to this that kind of got me more interested in the topic was Jeremy Lin, who is a former NBA player, current minor league, G League player, was called coronavirus on the court the other day by somebody from the opposite team, I'm going to assume. He kind of took the high road and, said it wouldn't really help any race relations whatsoever by calling out this person. But as somebody who kind of pays attention to sports, I had been seeing this story repeated through several outlets. I had been seeing a couple other small, elderly Asian person attacked in San Francisco, New York, just seemingly unprompted. And I had no idea what was going on, but it's just crazy to me that in this day and age where we can do so many great things, we can make the Statue of David come to life, we can land a car on Mars 5 times, and we can begin to overcome the country's past misdeeds, or at least acknowledge them and try to work on it, that we still have people who would go out of their way, waste the precious oxygen, that you only get so much of in your short time here on this planet, and just use that to bring somebody else down because of where they were born?
In the comments, the very top comment is a quote from Albert Einstein. It said, "What a sad era when it is easier to smash an atom than a prejudice."
Yeah, that guy knew what was up. Genius on many levels, right?
Mm-hmm. But regardless, there's some comments that go further down to quote where Einstein may have been prejudiced towards Chinese people. That's not the point of that quote, though. The point to me that screams is that this has been happening for so long. And I have never once understood the justification of why you would treat someone differently because of the country in which they came from. Like, it's
Let me ask you this.
mind-blowing to me that is even a problem.
Let me ask you this. Did you have any say whatsoever in who your parents were going to be?
No.
And did you pick that spot that they decided to fornicate and 9 months later pop you out into this world kicking and screaming?
Foot of the bed? No.
So how can you just look at somebody who's obviously different than you and say, "Oh, that person is so different than me. The first thing that I'm going to do is make fun of them and ridicule them. And what are you going to do? Force them to get their genetics changed at the DNA level so that they look and act like you? What's the point?" Anybody who's just doing this is obviously taught how to do this from somebody else, right? It is definitely a nurture versus a nature situation. But the people that continue it because after they know better, shame on them.
You said it right. Racism is taught. It's a learned trait of someone when they're younger. I have a ton of thoughts about this, and a lot of it stems back to generations before us and how they were less willing to embrace change and something different than them. Because we're taught this likely by our older family members. So for me, it is what I am proud of is that growing up, I was taught to be my own person, not judge people for their faults, not judge people for being different than me, but to be understanding of someone else's differences and how they can bring value to who I am. My parents were pretty open about talking about ways in which they embraced different types of people.
Yeah, same.
As I got older, though, I started to realize the areas, their downfalls, the ways in which they didn't embrace other cultures and people.
Same. Sadly, right?
Right.
And it's not necessarily like a bad thing because they raised you in a way where you didn't take those, I would say like just those crevices that were left uncovered. You didn't fill them with hate. You were curious and use that to kind of better yourself or gain knowledge rather than just become ignorant.
Oftentimes, the easiest route that someone takes when they're faced with a question that they don't have an understanding for is that of fear. It's easy to be fearful of the unknown. While I grew up being taught to not be fearful of the unknown, but to be curious of it, to embrace it and to try and learn. I might have been a shitty student at times, cheating on tests of areas that I didn't care about. But when it came down to it, I was taught to be curious and understanding of the people that I'm around. As we talk about racism, this conversation is never going to be easy because you and I will likely not be put into a position to change the mind of someone who's experiencing intense bigotry. At least this platform as a podcast likely is only going to get hate back at us. These types of platforms where we speak at someone, other people, the void is just going to yell back to us.
But like before, we have invited people to try and spark that conversation. We don't necessarily have to be a void. Mm-hmm. And we don't necessarily want to avoid that type of education on both sides. So, I mean, if you have a compelling reason that racism is going to be in your family for generations until the day you die, if you're going to keep flying that Confederate flag, tell us. Fill us in. We want to hear from your side.
I want to find a way to block you faster.
The quickest way to block somebody is to know that they are there. But in all seriousness, we're going to keep having these conversations because even though we won't be the ones to change minds or change hearts, the conversations are still going to happen all around us, especially on a giant platform like Reddit.
I think there was a wiser man than us once said, "We are not doing it because it is easy, but we are going to do it because it is hard." Wayne Gretzky.
And I believe they were looking at a poster of Pamela Anderson.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We are all over the place. If you want to get a hold of us, you can find us on our Instagram, Scott.
Sub for that.
Find us on Twitter.
Sub the number 4 that.
And if you want to get a little personal,
You can reach out on our Twitters, slide into our DMs, or just say hello. Acknowledge our presence. Recognize that we exist. Hello? Anybody?
help me.
At Scott Gurrola.
And WildMN293.
And remember, no matter what you're into, whether it's pizza crimes,
Children falling over,
backyard chickens,
or Untitled Goose Game.
there's a sub for that.